Hi everybody, this is Hero back with another Dragonflight video, and we are taking a look at the new Evoker class. And specifically, I wanted to give you a very brief video on the preservation or the healing spec for this new class and I guess race, since they're combined together. And the main feedback I want to relay right now is I think preservation Evoker is going to have to change, and if it changes in the way that I expect it will, many of the things going on in these trees might be completely adjusted. What do I mean by that? Well, this is supposed to be a class built on the flavor of a short or mid-range playstyle. Your abilities have, as you can see here, your main heal reversion at the top of the tree has a 25-yard range. And this is something that is kept through for almost all the abilities across all the skills. Expunge, 25 yards. Landslide, this one has 10 to 40. These are, again, some of the DPS abilities. Rescue, 25-yard range. Really powerful spell power coefficient. Instant cast, 430% spell power. But all of these, Cauterizing Flame, at 25-yard range. Now, the spec also has a bunch of movement-oriented abilities, like flying and doing damage in a big burst, or flying to rescue, as you just saw with things like rescue. And it has other movement tools that it can use to get around the battlefield. However, they have run into one of the hard walls, in my view, of design for a game like an MMO. You cannot have a healer be at 25-yard range, or you must have all specs be at 25-yard range as a maximum range for the use of their abilities. The reason for this is very clear once you do any kind of higher PvE content, and this I think is actually going to apply also for PvP. Whenever you get into content where there's a difficulty or a pressure to perform, or people are dying, you're in an urgent moment, or in a triage moment, we might say. When you're looking at your bars as a healer and you're trying to decide how best to utilize your skills, the thing that cannot be accounted for by the basic UI with any degree of usefulness is the spatial awareness of the player. Your brain has a very difficult time both looking at a healing bar and identifying, even if you have markers or weak auras that tell you who's out of range, has a very difficult time understanding the spatial relationship of where that person is without some kind of, I guess, weak auras that would basically hack the game files to show you how far away and in what direction the target who is out of range would be. So when you're playing the game and you're actually trying to heal somebody and there's a moment where a person drops low, if you're out of range, how do you know what to do to get in range in time? And the answer is that that's already a problem. Because if you have to do that extra step as a healer, that player may have died, or maybe wiped the raid, or someone else will have had to have covered that. So your instinct to try to heal that person in a triage moment is failing you. And that's where the wall comes in, where you're running into this bizarre situation of trying to find where players are in order to heal them. Like, well, come on, hero, you can just stack everybody up or make every ranged player play at 25 yards. And the truth is that in an ideal world, we already do try to stack everybody up. We have things like druids with their area effect, shamans especially for things like Link. We had, when Disc Priest was really pumping, people were stacking up for barriers. All of these features are a part of our gameplay in a raid scenario, and in Mythic Plus it's less so, but Mythic Plus groups are generally speaking pretty stacked up as well for the same kind of reason that most of your CC that is of an AoE nature is happening in a melee environment. And that's going to be true for going forward. If you look at the Ellie Shaman stuff, where their Thunderstorm is being changed to a knock-up, They're going to have to get into melee range to do it. You've got leg sweeps, you've got all this stuff. Anyways, so there's more likely a sort of tight gathering of people in a Mythic Plus scenario. But what if someone's kiting? What if someone's moving out of range? Your tank starts kiting and you're behind because you're catching up and your heals are just not in range. Well, just use your flying abilities. You'll get there in time and you'll be fine. And the truth is you can't ever account for that as a healer. In the raid environment, it's often worse because even if you were like a Holy Paladin, which is a great thing to check, or if you want a Mistweaver Monk, these classes are tagged as melee, and so they stand in melee, and your Light of Dawns are going out and healing largely melee targets, and that's fine. Why? Because you have the range, and you actually have an ability called Rule of Law, which extends the range to allow you to hit any target with any spell you want. And Rule of Law is off the GCD, so even if a target's really far away, you can always tag them with a Lay on Hands, or a Word of Glory, or a Holy Shock, or if, heaven forbid, you're casting as a Holy Paladin in melee, you can hit them with a Holy Light. All of these abilities have the range to reach anybody, essentially. 40 yards is the key number that we tend to talk about. But this spec has a baseline for all of those abilities at 25 yards, and their key abilities, some of them get to 40 yards, like Rewind. I think there's a few more. No, not Time Dilation. There was another one that's Dreamflight, but again, another flying ability, which is awkward for healers as well, but that's fine. There was another one in here I thought that was also 40 yards or more. Oh, Lifeline, unlimited range. So I think the idea of the Evoker is going to have to change because people are going to test this and realize, wow, I cannot interact with my party. I'm spending my time figuring out where everyone else is. And there's going to be high skill people who will know. They'll be able to kind of divide their attention and look at the raid and see maybe by the transmog a person has, or maybe they'll figure out some weak aura on their screen that sorts out, giving them a flashing indicator of where a person is. But this is not ideal out-of-the-box gameplay. And I think Evoker looks to be kind of a cool flavor with the dragon stuff. There's other problems, I think, with this from a healer perspective. Things like these charge systems, so Spirit Bloom, and there's an AoE Breath as well. There is a build-up of 3 targets that is associated with holding the channel of this spell. However, this is a problem. You're always going to feel bad if you don't hit that top marker, healing 3 allies. Look at the spell power coefficient on this on a baseline, 565%. So that's 1,500 plus, really, 1,500%. More like, I guess, 1,700% spell power coefficient for this one ability. And you have to channel it both with a GCD at the beginning and a release GCD at the end, which is kind of the third problem that Evoker needs to overcome, is these breath abilities are tied to a GCD, both when you press it to hold down and after you finish the spell. A whole GCD expires before you can do something else. So there's a couple of things that are, I think, potentially problematic, and this has nothing to do with Blizzard's attention or attempt, I think, to design something really cool. They're doing their best. They're trying to think of new ideas, and I think they've come up with some cool ones. Things like Rewind look kind of interesting. Some of the raid utility is off the charts and exciting, but this idea of trying to limit the gameplay to 25 yards, maybe as a way to limit how powerful this character can be, is not going to work at all from a regular healer's perspective. So I hope they have a chance to iterate on this and think through how to adjust some of this stuff. Unfortunately, my guess is the only solution is to just abandon that flavor altogether and to make all healing spells at 25 or at 40 yards that are of any significance. And that's kind of sad, but I just don't see them really sticking with this, especially things like dispels, guys. Can you imagine if you're on a dispel rotation and you can't find where the guy is? It's pretty wild. Anyways, thanks for watching. I'm going to hopefully get you some more content on this new spec and talk about all of these details like the talent trees and stuff at another date. I just wanted to get this video out because I think it's far more important for people to talk about this giant issue of range and how you're going to do any kind of healing from range. Thanks very much for watching. We'll catch you guys next time.